Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you very much, Christel, for having accepted this interview. So maybe before we start, you just made a big announcement. Maybe you want to give a few words around that. The announcement you just announced actually 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago. And see, we are very up to date.
I think it was more than an hour ago. I know AI moves very fast, so we have to adjust. No, but seriously, I mean, it's the announcement, but of course it's something we've been working on for quite some time. We all know AI is really a revolution, a disruption, but also full of opportunities. And I will use the words of Ursula von der Leyen this morning, because I think it's super important that we put ourselves in the context of where Europe stands. And she said, we want Europe to be an AI continent, and the race for AI is far from being over, because it's true that we tend to be sometimes pessimistic or thinking that things happen, probably not here in Station F, we know a lot happens in France and in Europe, but we tend to look at the big amounts flying around, and it's true that of course, China and the US occupy the space. So what do we do at Orange? Of course, we are very committed to having a very solid and strong European ecosystem for AI. And so we've just announced a partnership with Mistral, not just a commercial partnership, actually, a research partnership. Because what's important for us, we invest and we run networks across the globe. We know AI will have impact on those networks. Actually, it's going to be an enabler for us to run efficiently our networks. But it's also important for us to design, to think about what's going to be the best networks for AI tomorrow. And there's only one way for us. We know how networks work, but our networks have been designed for the past 10 years to really get used to video streaming. I mean, 20 years ago, it was mobile revolution for us. 10 years ago, it was the video streaming when Netflix and everything arrived. And now we know it's going to be a new wave of innovation. And so we need to partner with a European champion, and that's Mistral, to really learn about what they're observing when AI scales in terms of usage, and share the know-how between the best experts that we have, our research experts on networks, combining with the experts of Mistral and sharing use cases, sharing data to be at the forefront of what's going to be needed tomorrow. So that's the partnership. And of course, on top of that, we will use Mistral in our networks, and we will also, very important, enable our professional enterprise customers, thanks to Mistral, for them to adopt AI. So that's the partnership we announced.
Congratulations for this. And what are the particularities on the assets you think of Europe, and specifically maybe France, in order to tackle those challenges and make sure that we can compete in a good way with the other platforms, the other models which are emerging in the US and China, for example? So what are our assets?
So I think the conversation would be very different if we did not have the DeepSeek announcement 2 weeks ago. And I think that was a defining moment, not just for people and of course for the teams at Mistral and many researchers. We know that AI is really what's fascinating with AI is that the time between research and application is so quick. Because of what? Because of open source. And that's what the founders of Mistral and the team have been saying for a long time. But DeepSeek has demonstrated it to the world. And of course, we see the big numbers. But it's true that open source really changes the game. What do we have in Europe? We have talents, that's for sure. Many of them do not work anymore in Europe. But we know we have great schools, great talent, not just in France, by the way. You go to Germany, you go to the UK as well. We have talents, we have champions. We tend to think about the digital world, thinking about the consumer revolution, the internet revolution. And of course, as a telecom operator, we know consumers, this is where we have the millions, the hundreds of millions of customers. But in Europe, we have really industrial champions. Think about healthcare, think about manufacturing, think about energy, and AI will really deeply transform the world when it's adopted in these use cases. And we have European champions who really master the know-how, the processes, And so that's the opportunity that we have to really use AI and tomorrow AI agents in the processes that we really master in Europe. Now, we also have to make it clear that unless we change a few things in Europe, we will continue to actually try to do a marathon with a big, heavy backpack of regulation and national regulation, vertical regulation, horizontal regulation. So that's also something that we're trying to tackle, because we have to unleash the potential. I'm not saying we don't want any regulation, especially in AI, we need some. But there's really, when we see the amazing things that European companies do, given all the things that we have to do, and the fact that we're not one continent in Europe, one country, we are 27 member states, this is something that we have to address as well.
So you have 300 million customers worldwide. You are the first voice and data network in the world. How many countries are you in today, roughly?
We are a telecom operator in 25 countries.
25.
In Europe and Africa, but of course we operate around the globe, and we have submarine cables around the globe, because of course we serve the needs of global enterprise companies around the globe.
This is a strength. This is a strength for you, because you're used to expand internationally in new countries and make sure that you are compatible with any country you find. So maybe it can allow you as well to be more resilient. But still, you say there are a lot of things which needs to be made lighter in regulations. Can you be maybe a bit more specific or on those topics? What do you think? So
I have been
entering in a
very specific
in 15
with.
minutes.
I'll take 3 examples. You take data protection. Everyone knows GDPR, but in telecoms we have what is the vertical regulation, electronic communication, e-privacy, even more restrictive than GDPR. So I'm not asking for no regulation. I'm asking for one. And then, of course, not only it's one, so European, but every country in Europe tends to do a different flavor of the GDPR, because we have different agencies in every country, and they have their own way of assessing what should be done or not. So that's data protection, data privacy. You take security. I mean, security is not a European matter. Every member state is in charge of security. I'm not asking for the same security rules in every country, because I'm asking for quick decision, but at least if we could harmonize the reporting needs. So there are a number of things that we need to do so that we at least simplify the reporting,
okay, so
make it easier take a consumer contract. Any startups who starts in France, if you want to do the same business in any country elsewhere in Europe, and we know that, we have millions of customers across Europe, you cannot copy-paste a customer contract. Because the payment, the customer protection, consumer protection rules, there's many things that make it complex for one company starting somewhere in Europe to expand across Europe. Of course, and we don't have the same languages, so you can say AI is going to fix that. Yes, that's an opportunity. But this is where we start with a disadvantage compared to the US or China.
So you're not specifically asking for less regulation or changing the regulations, but you're asking for unified.
I'm asking for less. I don't want 2 regulations to tackle the same topic, but I'm asking for at least unified or harmonized regulation.
Okay. My last question will be around energy and data centers. We all know that this is central to AI. A significant part of the announced 500 billion budget of the US Stargate project and of the 109 billion euros budget of the French state will be dedicated to building physical infrastructures able to support the next generation of AI. Since before becoming the CEO of Orange, you spent 7 years at Schneider Electric as Executive VP for Europe. I'll ask you to comment President Macron's speech, who responded yesterday to US President's drill, baby drill, quote, with the now famous plug, baby plug, punchline to invite the whole world to come to France to plug their services. I'd like to ask you what assets you know Europe has in these fields, energy and data centers, and what you think should be built in the coming months in order to compete internationally, and why should everyone come to France to plug, baby, plug?
So I'm not going to comment what President Macron said, but we know in Europe, we have actually pretty good infrastructures. We are now building massively renewable energy production. And of course, in France, we have low carbon thanks to nuclear. And it's true that data centers and AI factories, as we call them now, consume electricity. And we still have to think about, we don't live in a world of unlimited resources. This is why, by the way, I mean, we're convinced, at least at Orange, that frugal AI will be the way to go. There is no way we think about AI at scale for the planet, because it cannot be just for the happy few, sitting in huge data centers. That does not work for resources. So yes, data centers consume energy. We have low carbon energy in Europe. We are adding more renewable capacity. Now, you need the grid to connect to the data centers, and then you need a lot of things in the data centers. But we have champions. Who are the leaders to build those technologies? They are called, of course, Schneider Electric, Siemens, ABB, 3 European companies.
Why is it important that we have the data centers and all this infrastructure in Europe where you could think that you can rent it out from anywhere if you need for your AI services? Is it a question of distance still? Because we think that we live in a world where instant communication is the reality, but instant communication is actually sometimes more, I mean, it takes more time than we think. So is it because the latency will be an issue as well for AI services, and it's better to have the service data centers here than on another continent? Or why is it so important that we have all this infrastructure here in Europe?
Well, I think, I mean, first of all, there's a number of sovereignty challenges, because we know that we don't live in a world where nobody is naive anymore. So there are many industries, and telco is one, where you have to run your data locally. So that's a starting point. Then, of course, I mean, there's all type of data centers, because we think we know there's the hyperscalers data centers. So these are huge factories, and this is the public cloud infrastructure. But most companies, they still have servers, and they are migrating to the cloud. And in the end, it's not much about the data center. It's more what type of data, what critical applications do you run. And so you need the partners and the ability to control. And by the way, we are strongly convinced that connectivity and computing, actually, we've been talking about cloud computing for a long time. I think we're moving to a world of earth computing, which means that resources, infrastructure really matters. And it's true that we tend to think about the internet was built on this concept of, I mean, best effort. When you run a critical application, best effort it's not enough. And a number of use cases that we think, because of sovereignty or even defense, healthcare, I mean, privacy is so important that you really need to control. So there's no doubt that you need some infrastructure. You need a network of infrastructure for resiliency. And then we will also need computing at the edge, because a car is not always connected. A plane, despite Elon Musk and Starlink, is not always connected, and you want actually the ability to control your system. So there's going to be all type of infrastructure, and compute at the edge exists already. I mean, this type of device is very powerful. It's more powerful than the laptop we used to have a few years ago. So,
thank you very much, Christel. And we will build the best for France and Europe, and we count on Orange to help us on this way. Thank you very much.
We count on the ecosystem, not just Orange.